critically low test scores in city schools, but city leaders have done little to nothing about it. Fox 45 News questions when they'll act. City schools are not alone with struggling student proficiency.
This is an absolute tragedy.
How many county schools Fox 45 News Project Baltimore uncovered that have similar shortcomings? Charges upheld against Council President Nick Mosby. Our team is talking with the head of the Ethics Board on what comes next. The confirmation hearing has stalled for Governor Morris Pick to lead juvenile services, but concerns from lawmakers amid an uptick in juvenile crime. The man arrested after a two-day manhunt has his bail hearing waived. What comes next for his case?
Live from WBFF in Baltimore, this is Fox 45 News at 10.
And we're following some breaking news out of Michigan right now. Police are reporting an active shooter situation at Michigan State University. You are taking a live look at the scene on the right side of your screen. Campus police say they are looking for the suspect, who they believe is on foot with a long rifle. The campus is sheltering in place. The Associated Press reporting multiple people are hurt. This is a developing story. We'll keep you updated, but an active shooter seen at Michigan State University in Lansing, Michigan.
Good evening. I'm Kai Jackson.
And I'm Mary Bubala. After a hearing today, a committee deciding to wait to make a decision on the governor's pick to lead the Department of Juvenile Services as we see a rise in juvenile crime across the state.
Now it comes the day after police say a group of juveniles robbed and shot a man in Baltimore City. Fox 45 News has also heard concerns from Anne Arundel, Harford, and Prince George's counties.
Fox 45's Keith Daniel was at that hearing today. He joins us live now with more concerns from some lawmakers. Keith?
Well, Mary and Kai, the state's newly appointed secretary has written extensively about the endorsements, or rather about the strategies he endorses. He believes they will work. He highlighted some of those points at the hearing, but tonight, pushback from some lawmakers.
Good evening, everyone.
In Annapolis, Vincent Schiraldi, who's set to become Maryland's Secretary of Juvenile Services, face-to-face at a hearing with the Senate's Executive Nomination Committee. Members with questions for Governor Wes Moore's appointee.
Many in Maryland don't think we're doing enough to protect them against violent offenders and violent juveniles. What are your specific plans and approaches to violent juveniles?
If they're in custody, I want to expand the kinds of programs that are going to help those young people turn their lives around. The ones that are in the community, again, we need high-intensity wraparound services for the highest-risk young people.
The governor called Schiraldi a national leader in criminal juvenile justice and mass incarceration reform. But opponents have called his strategies dangerous for Maryland. Under fire at the hearing from some Republican committee members tonight who don't appear to agree with Schiraldi's strategies.
How would you plan to replace punishment and surveillance with healing and resiliency? What part of that, how would you do that?
I think that in the past our systems swung too far in one direction, and we just need to bring some balance back to that.
In the Washington Post, Schiraldi suggested that because the human brain is not fully developed until the mid-20s, no criminal should be exposed to the adult juvenile system until they turn 21 or 25. Right now, if you're 18 years old, you're sent to the adult system, and so are some younger offenders who commit the most horrendous crimes. At the hearing, those who oppose Schiraldi's strategies and those who support it.
Proud supporter nomination.
And I see in the stack of letters here a strong endorsement of someone I do know very well, which is Professor Peter Leone at the University of Maryland, who's an expert in this field. And he said he's worked with Mr. Schiraldi over the years and has the highest regard for him. Therefore, I do too.
Well, the committee voted to hold off on its vote for Schiraldi tonight. They say other senators want the opportunity to meet with him individually to ask him questions. They say the committee's nominating vote could come later this week before moving on to the full Senate for a vote. We're live in Annapolis. Keith Daniels, Fox 45 News.
Keith, thank you. In the meantime, Fox 45 News is helping you contact your elected leaders about issues important to you. Point your phone's camera at the QR code on your screen. It'll take you to our website, where we've put together a list of local delegates and senators in Annapolis. You can reach them through email or by phone.
Turning now to the crisis in the classroom. Tomorrow, the city school CEO is expected to make a formal recommendation on the future of the Baltimore Collegiate School for Boys. Now, the school could lose its charter and be shut down over missing paperwork and data entry errors, issues that those in the school call technicalities. Fox 45 News continues to demand answers about a recent report from Project Baltimore showing at least 23 schools in the city have 0 students proficient in math. Fox 45's Rebecca Pryor explains city leaders appear months away from taking any action.
Yeah, in response to these test scores, Councilman Robert Stokes has said a hearing with school leaders needs to happen. However, he doesn't plan on holding that hearing until April, despite City Council proving in the past when they want to act fast, they do. State testing revealing shocking scores in city schools. Fox 45's Project Baltimore combing through the 2022 MCAP results, finding at least 23 Baltimore City schools with 0 students proficient in math. But the setback has few city leaders stepping up to close the gaps. Last week, Fox 45 sending questions to the mayor's office asking, do you believe a change in school leadership is necessary in Baltimore? If not, why not? And how do you defend these results? The mayor ignoring our questions, along with Councilman Ryan Dorsey.
Well, I don't have any interest in talking to anybody from any Sinclair Broadcast Group affiliate. Why is that?
Meanwhile, Councilman Robert Stokes, chair of the Education, Workforce, and Youth Committee, says a hearing needs to be held to demand answers from school leaders. But it's a hearing he doesn't plan on holding until April. When asked why the wait, Stokes' office sending us a statement that reads in part, quote, it is important to Councilman Stokes that the CEO be there in addition to her staff to discuss the issue. She and her administration are available in April. Despite desperate parents like Nichelle Watkins,
they go there to get babysit for 8 hours and come home.
Saying Baltimore City children need help now.
He can't read. He's in the 4th grade. How is he supposed to be productive if he can't read?
I think that it should be addressed a lot sooner.
According to political analyst John Deedy, council members could be stalling until the legislature announces how much money will be going to city schools by April 11th. With Governor Westmore pledging to boost spending on education, Deedy thinks the influx of funds could be a way for school leaders to put a positive spin on the negative test scores.
Because then they can say, look, we've got all this money, all these resources have come in, and here's what we can now do to fix the problem. Governor Moore has saved us.
Even with city schools already operating on a $1.6 billion budget, one of the highest of any large school districts in the nation. City Council has also shown when it matters to them, they act swiftly. For example, last November, amid Baltimore City voters overwhelmingly passing term limits for elected leaders, City Council immediately responding by fast-tracking a bill that would reduce the number of years they would need to serve before getting their pensions.
Question K was pertinent to their career more than to the city school kids. Oh my God, I'm going to lose my job. But I'm going to lose my pension. You know, all these things were going to happen that were going to affect them directly.
The bill making council members eligible for pensions after 8 years instead of 12, taking just 3 weeks to be voted on 3 times and officially approved before ultimately being vetoed by Mayor Brandon Scott.
But so then what does that say to students, to parents, and ultimately to voters about the priorities of our city council members?
I think what it really says about the priorities is, unfortunately, education has fallen behind in the priority right now.
But for struggling parents, it's always top of mind.
I feel like they don't care. It's not their children. They don't care.
And we also asked when exactly that April hearing will take place. Stokes' office, though, ignoring that question. Reporting in Baltimore, Rebecca Pryor, Fox 45 News.
Civil rights attorney Ben Crump is weighing in on the latest Project Baltimore report. Last year, he joined a lawsuit against city schools, accusing the school system of wasting taxpayer dollars and failing to provide students with an adequate education. In a one-on-one interview, he tells Fox 45 News, this report underscores why the lawsuit is so important.
We have to go forward with this lawsuit to try to hold people accountable and make them come to the table to deal with this issue. We can't look the other way with such dismal test results. I think without a quality education, then children are already imprisoned in this society today. They just have not slammed the jail cell door. And so if we want to prevent many children from being caught in the school to prison pipeline, then we must act now.
Crump says city and school leaders need to step up. Dr. Ben Carson, who wrote the book Crisis in the Classroom with Crump, agrees, saying new leaders may be the answer.
I don't want to believe the school leadership is turning a blind eye, but I do think that they may be arrogant if they refuse to sit down with community stakeholders. Your whole purpose for being is to make sure our children receive a quality education. And if you're not fulfilling your duties, then the people need to show up at the polls and make sure they hold them accountable.
The solution is to get somebody in charge who cares. Because if it was their child and their child was in this system and there was a responsibility for educating that child, I guarantee you would see different results.
Well, that brings us to today's question of the day. Should parents be given school choice if their child's school is failing? So far, 96% of voters say yes. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote to weigh in.
Well, Baltimore City Schools isn't the only jurisdiction where students are not meeting state standards. Tonight, there are also concerns in Baltimore County.
That is a total failure of a totally failed education system where, as I said before, finally something needs to be done, and collectively with the politicians to get together to say we need a new direction.
Coming up in 5 minutes, Project Baltimore sheds a light on troubling test scores from Baltimore County and hears from one state lawmaker who says the time for change is now.
Well, 4 schools in Baltimore City will remain closed tomorrow. Augusta Fell Savage, Harlem Park Elementary Middle School, Bluford Drew Jemison STEM Academy West, and Career Academy will remain closed to students and most staff tomorrow, February 14th. School administrators say crews are repairing water damage after a water main break.
All right, our first forecast starts with some chilly temperatures. Toyota issued a Harbor Skycam, clear skies after highs of 58 at BWI. We're now at 46, 45 at Aberdeen, 49 at Annapolis, 50 at Easton, and 52 at Westminster. And as we start our Valentine's Day, it looks like a little bit of a chill in the air. Temperature's going to be in the 30s, so jacket, sunglasses, and a scarf needed. I'll let you know when we could have some rain, though, and if that's going to affect your plans for Valentine's Day in a couple of minutes.
Still ahead on Fox 45 News at 10 o'clock tonight, the United States has now shot down 4 unidentified objects over American airspace in the last 4 days. What we know about the aircraft as the White House is pressed for answers. A judge finds Baltimore City Council President Nick Mosby guilty of violating ethics rules, when he'll earn his punishment and what that could be. And the suspect accused of shooting 2 Baltimore County police officers during a 36-hour manhunt waives his bail hearing. What's next for David Linthicum? A Project Baltimore report ignites outrage exposing 23 Baltimore City schools where 0 students tested proficient in math.
But as Project Baltimore's Chris Papps explains, every school system in Maryland takes state testing, and Baltimore City was not the only one with concerning scores.
Baltimore County State Delegate Nino Mangione is taking a stand.
And what we've seen is a continued failure.
Hours after FOX45 broke the story that 23 Baltimore City schools have 0 students proficient in state math tests, Mangione, a Republican, posted this on social media. The Baltimore City school system needs a new leader and a complete overhaul.
In Baltimore City, the school superintendent has to go. I believe that she has failed in her duty.
Mangione was not alone. Our reporting caused an outcry on the radio.
When you see stories coming out like this from Project Baltimore, it should make you scream.
Astonishing and so sad.
From parents.
It needs to be something done today. Today.
And community leaders.
I represent the Black Church of Baltimore. We're acting right now.
But poor student outcomes are not just a Baltimore City issue. We found a similar problem in Baltimore County. In late January, the 2022 MCAP state test results were released. Based on their scores, students are placed in one of 4 levels. Levels 1 and 2 are considered not proficient. Levels 3 and 4 are considered proficient. In Baltimore County, we found 7 schools with 0 students who tested proficient in math. That includes Chesapeake, Pikesville, and Randallstown High Schools, and Crossroads Center for middle school students. The other 3 are alternative schools, which Baltimore County says take the same MCAP test, but are not considered accountability schools, as outlined by the Maryland State Department of Education. And the data from those centers and/or programs is evaluated differently. There's another 10 schools with just 1 or 2 students proficient in math. 9 of them are high schools, including Dundalk, Franklin, and Parkville.
That is a total failure of a totally failed education system where, as I said before, finally something needs to be done, and collectively with the politicians to get together to say we need a new direction.
Of the 17 Baltimore County schools with 2 or fewer students proficient in math, 12 are high schools. And that could get worse. We dug into the MCAP results for 8th graders in all of BCPS. 8,505 8th graders took the math test. 684 of them tested proficient. That's 8%. This means 92% of all 8th graders tested in Baltimore County schools are not doing math at grade level.
I think that's not good. We certainly got to do a better job at that.
This is very concerning. I'm very serious about it.
Delegates Carl Jackson and Harry Bendari, both Democrats, represent Baltimore County. They point to the pandemic learning loss as one reason for the MCAP results. In a statement, Baltimore County Schools said it's working urgently to improve and accelerate student learning. Their plan includes targeted tutoring supports, reviewing when and how teachers deliver material, and examining math curriculum for gaps. And unlike Baltimore City, Baltimore County will soon have new leadership. Last month, Superintendent Dr. Darrell Williams announced he will not seek another contract.
I'm definitely looking forward to a new superintendent coming in and helping us kind of change those numbers around.
To address the low scores, Jackson and Bendari point to the Kerwin Plan, which pumps $30 billion additional dollars into public education over 10 years. Kerwin, in part, provides more mental health and tutoring services for students.
So we need to make sure that we look the result and we fix the problem. Be honest about it and be accountable and do better because that is our future.
But Mangione doesn't believe adding more money into the same system is the answer.
This is an absolute tragedy, and the entire system needs to be revamped. School choice, competition, I think it's too big a bureaucracy in education. I think, again, the teachers union has far too much power, and I think this idea that money solves the problem is absolutely incorrect.
I'm Chris Pabst, and this is Project Baltimore.
Still ahead, a judge finds Baltimore City Council President Nick Mosby did violate ethics rules. A closer look at the decision and what comes next.
The White House pressed for answers after shooting down more mysterious aircraft. I'm Scott Thuman in Washington with new reaction.
And things looking really nice for Valentine's Day. Couldn't be better for a February 14th. Temperatures up near 60 degrees tomorrow for taking your sweetheart out to lunch. By dinner time, though, we're dropping down into the 40s, so it's going to be some cuddle up time there. In the next 3 days, look at those temperatures off to the races. But by Thursday, could see some rain. Well, you know what comes behind that? My Weather Authority forecast.
In the past 3 days, the U.S. has shot down multiple unidentified flying objects across the nation. The White House lawmakers are being pressed for answers, but admit they, too, are still searching for many answers.
Sinclair's chief political correspondent Scott Thuman has more.
One of the reasons that we think we're seeing more is because we're looking for more.
Plenty of questions, not as many answers about the sudden increase in activity over U.S. skies and who is responsible.
We know the first one was Chinese. They admitted it. These three, we don't have attribution for right now. We don't know who owns them.
Lawmakers acknowledging the frequency of incidents could coincide with the U.S. recently enhancing its radar detection system.
Until a few months ago, we didn't know of these balloons. Our intelligence and our military did not know. This went as far back as President Trump, at least 3 times.
It's wild that we didn't know, isn't it?
It is wild that we didn't know.
These are the ones that we do know about so far. Of course, there was that first takedown off the Carolina coast. But since then, U.S. fighter jets have shot down foreign objects near Alaska on Friday, in the Yukon on Saturday, and then here over Lake Huron near Michigan on Sunday. Critics wonder, is the administration reacting more quickly now due to political pressure? And have objects been violating America's airspace for a long time and only now being noticed?
UAP reports have been around for decades.
These hearings last year after Congress required the Pentagon to create an office to investigate unidentified aerial phenomena, the new term for a UFO.
UAPs are unexplained, it's true, but they are real. They need to be investigated.
NORAD, the military coalition protecting North America's skies, saying nothing can be ruled out.
Have you ruled out aliens or extraterrestrials?
I haven't ruled out anything. We continue to assess every potential threat unknown that approaches North America.
But if the latest intercepts are Chinese surveillance aircraft like that first one, China claims the U.S. should look in the mirror, citing at least 10 American balloons in Chinese airspace in the last year, something U.S. officials deny. In Washington, I'm Scott Thuman.
Well, we want you to join the national conversation. Do you trust the government to be transparent with their investigation into the unidentified objects in U.S. airspace? So far, 100% of voters say no. Head to foxbaltimore.com/vote. Click on the Pulse tab to weigh in.
The man accused of shooting 2 Baltimore County police officers after a manhunt was supposed to appear in court today, but that didn't happen. We'll tell you why and what comes next.
More and more states wading into the debate over health care for transgender youth. I'm Christine Frizzell with what may be motivating this.
We have breaking news out of Michigan State University at Lansing. At least one person is dead. Multiple people are hurt after a shooting. Those shots were fired this evening in East Lansing. The campus has been placed under a shelter-in-place order as officers now search for a suspect. We do know that agents from the FBI and ATF are also responding. Again, we understand one person has died in a shooting on the campus of Michigan State University. No word right now if a suspect is in custody.
We are following 3 other big stories at 10:30.
A shooting victim in Towson is facing charges himself. A closer look at what happened and why it has some concerned about their safety.
The Cockeysville man accused of shooting 2 Baltimore County police officers has waived his bail hearing. We are taking a look at what's next in his case.
A judge finds City Council President Nick Mosby did violate ethics rules surrounding his failure to report donations to a legal defense fund in his name.
And we begin there. The judge today upholding 2 of 3 ethics violations against the City Council president.
Fox 45's Jeff Abel joins us live right now with a look at what comes next. Jeff?
Well, you know, it was almost a year ago when Council President Nick Mosby agreed to comply, then denied he'd done anything wrong. Well, today it took a judge to decide that when it comes to ethics, Mosby had crossed the line.
This was a win for ethics in the city.
For Ethics Board Chairman Stephen Fogelman, it's been a year-long battle to ensure the city's second most powerful public official is on sound, ethical ground.
Can you assure the people that you are ethically sound?
I'm unequivocally. I think through even their investigation, it clearly showed that I had absolutely nothing to do with it.
But today, a judge ruled otherwise. Last year, the city's ethics board slapped Council President Nick Mosby with 3 ethics violations, accusing him of failing to report on city ethics forms a legal defense fund which was established for Mosby and his wife, former state's attorney Marilyn Mosby. The council president had long contended that he didn't establish the fund and had no control over the $14,000 raised by the fund. But at a hearing before a circuit judge today, an attorney representing the ethics board insisted, as a beneficiary of the trust, he has an equitable interest in that money. Mosby's attorney fired back, telling the judge it's not whether Mr. Mosby had a legal or equitable interest in the fund. The test is whether he had a financial interest in the fund. In the end, the judge ruled that Mosby had indirectly solicited donations from the fund and had an obligation to report it, saying the problem with the board is once Mr. Mosby became aware of this, he didn't disassociate from it.
The judge reaffirmed the board's decision that the ethics law's restriction on soliciting gifts are very broad, and an official cannot get around those restrictions by allowing third parties to fundraise on their behalf.
The judge upheld 2 of the 3 ethics violations Mosby faced, but he left it up to the ethics board to decide any appropriate penalties.
The board's going to consider their options.
For now, the city's ethics board believes the ruling sends a much greater message.
We believe that the judge's decision today will lead to greater transparency.
Mosby can still appeal today's decision to a court in Annapolis, but it is unclear whether he has any plans to do so. We are live tonight. Jeff Abel, Fox 45 News.
Jeff, thank you. Nick Mosby's wife, former Baltimore City State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby, is waiting for her federal trial. She was indicted on 4 federal charges more than a year ago. Weeks ago, the judge in the case allowed Mosby's entire defense team to withdraw from her case. Public Defender James White is now defending her. Her trial was delayed a 3rd time because of that. During a status conference on Friday, it was revealed the trial likely won't happen until September or October of this year. You can find more of the controversy surrounding Nick and Marilyn Mosby on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Well, a contract between Baltimore City and New Jersey-based company Metra Industries has been pulled from tomorrow's Board of Estimates agenda following pushback from some city businesses. Critics accuse the company of promising then failing to hire Baltimore's minority city contractors. Tharu Vignaraja, who has been representing a local subcontractor, says it is the right decision.
It shouldn't take 3 press conferences to make that happen, but I'm glad someone's paying attention. And frankly, that result only vindicates that we're not shouting into the wind.
The Board of Estimates was supposed to address the contract earlier this month, but delayed the vote. You can find more on the contract on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Congressman Kwesi Mfume and Senators Ben Cardin and Chris Van Hollen gathered in the Upton neighborhood today to announce new funding for the restoration of the historic Upton Mansion. It will serve as the home and research center for the Afro-American newspaper archives.
This is an important project for so many reasons. The Afro Archives is one of the strongest reserves of information about the African American community in our country. And it's right here in Baltimore.
Well, the project is getting a little more than $2 million, along with redevelopment. The funding will also be used to digitize that archive.
Continuing coverage now as the Cockeysville man accused of shooting 2 Baltimore County police officers waives his bail hearing.
Fox 45's Alexa Ashwell has the latest developments.
David Linthicum waived his bail hearing, meaning he did not appear on video and remains in custody. Linthicum is facing multiple charges, including the attempted murders of his very own father and 2 Baltimore County police officers.
David Linthicum, the 24-year-old accused of shooting 2 Baltimore County police officers, critically injuring one of them, will remain in custody. Linthicum's public defender waiving his bail hearing inside Baltimore County District Court this afternoon. Deputy State's Attorney Lisa Dever says she was prepared to fight for no bail.
Well, obviously that he's a danger to the community based on all the facts and circumstances of the case.
The Linthicum family's home here in Cockeysville is now surrounded by caution tape, the property lined with no trespassing signs, and the garage door and windows boarded up. These court documents detailing on February 8th, Linthicum shot the officer who responded to the home after his father reported he was suicidal. Then the next day, shot Detective Chi when he tried to stop Linthicum during the search for him. The detective critically injured and rushed to shock trauma, where he remains.
I think this place is cursed. What's the chances of 2 horrible things going on in the same house?
A former neighbor speaking to the history of the Linthicum family home. It's the same house where Nicholas Browning murdered his family back in 2008. The neighbor also recalling back in 2019 when police surrounded the home and Linthicum's father was arrested for possession of child pornography.
I believe he was arrested for child pornography. And then, of course, everything went down.
It was during this interview that a man arrived to the Linthicum family home and told Fox 45 News to leave. The man, believed to be Linthicum's father, wouldn't identify himself, but said the bail hearing had been waived. He wouldn't comment further.
Other neighbors we spoke to off camera described the father and son as private people who often kept to themselves. Linthicum is due in court for a preliminary hearing March 10th. In Towson, Alexa Ashwell, Fox 45 News.
People in Baltimore County and beyond are rallying around the police detective at shock trauma. Police say that David Linthicum shot him and stole his car Thursday night. Now, this GoFundMe page for the injured officer has raised more than $120,000 in 2 days. Baltimore County Police say Officer Chi is recovering, alert, and in good spirits. You can find a link to the GoFundMe page on our website, foxbaltimore.com/newslinks.
Elsewhere in Baltimore County, police say a man who was shot in Towson last night is now facing firearm charges himself. Authorities say the charges stem from guns officers found in the victim's car. The suspect who shot the man is still on the run. It's just the latest violent incident in Towson recently. Residents say it has them on edge.
This used to be a nice area right here. We used to come down here all the time, go shopping, in the 7-Eleven and all that. People are friendly.
I can definitely see where some of the neighbors might not be walking around as much as they were.
2 weeks ago, police say somebody fired shots near Towson Town Circle. Nobody was hurt. Earlier this month, police say a suspect committed an armed carjacking at Lochraven Boulevard and Jopper Road. At the end of December, 7 juveniles were arrested after a large and chaotic crowd formed at the Towson Circle. Now, Captain Sam Houston from the Towson precinct says police have increased patrols in the area, and through a partnership with the Chamber of Commerce, most businesses in the area do have cameras. He says he is confident Towson is a safe place.
This is not the norm. Towson is a very safe, it's a vibrant place. I have a daughter who's 17 who's planning on, she's accepted it at Towson, and if I didn't think it was a safe place, I wouldn't let her go to Towson.
Baltimore County Executive Johnny Olszewski released a statement on the shooting today saying criminal behavior will not be tolerated in Baltimore County. The statement goes on to say, quote, "We continue to monitor our operations and will continue to do whatever it takes to keep Towson and all of Baltimore County a safe place to live, work, and raise a family." In other news tonight, we are seeing vastly different actions being taken on the issue of transgender rights. As some states work to expand health care, others are passing laws to restrict or ban it altogether.
National correspondent Christine Frizzell has details.
Across the country, the debate over transgender rights is taking hold, with divergent paths on where to go next, including on allowing medical procedures like gender-affirming surgery and puberty-blocking hormones, in some cases for minors.
Gender-affirming hormone therapy is still vital, life-saving, important health care.
But multiple states are cracking down on the procedures, including Utah, Tennessee, South Dakota, and Florida.
If you're performing those procedures on these minors, you're going to lose your medical license here in Florida.
Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, as well as South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, seen as potential 2024 presidential candidates. Some experts say they may be taking a page from an old political playbook.
We're a couple of years out from the presidential election, and if somebody is really considering running, they got to get their name out there so that donors and potential volunteers know that they can support them.
Still, the only declared Republican candidate, former President Donald Trump, is taking it further. He's suggesting hospitals that perform the surgery should be cut off from Medicare and Medicaid, and that schools where gender identity is discussed should be defunded and sued.
I will ask Congress to pass a bill establishing that the only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female, and they are assigned at birth.
Minnesota, on the other hand, moving in the opposite direction.
HF 146 would make Minnesota into a trans refuge state by protecting trans people, their families, and medical practitioners from the legal repercussions of traveling to Minnesota to receive gender-affirming care.
While so-called culture war issues like this one tend to have an impact during the presidential primary season, political analysts warn they could be far less effective during the general election, when moderates and more independents are needed to win. In Washington, I'm Christine Frizzell.
A traffic alert for Baltimore County drivers, what you need to be aware of before your morning commute.
And the morning commute on our Valentine's Day, looking like temperatures start in the 30s, working to the 40s by about 10 a.m. Nice mild day on the way tomorrow, but we could have some rain that's coming. I'll let you know what comes behind it and when you're going to get wet. My Weather Authority forecast.